In the cold morning of April 1912, the port of Southampton was a symphony of human emotion. Families clung to loved ones, suitcases rumbled across wooden planks, and the air buzzed with excitement for the maiden voyage of the Titanic. But amidst the hopeful crowd, one man stood upon a tall, quiet figure in a dark coat, clutching a small, light brown case. His name was Adrian Morgan, and you won't find his name on any passenger list. He approached the boarding officer and simply handed him a folded note. After a brief hesitation, the officer waved him through, no questions asked. The small case Adrian carried held no fine clothes, no valuables. Inside, there was only an old wooden violin, bearing a curious inscription, "To the one who plays for the lost." From the very first night at sea, Adrian kept his distance from the glittering parties and the first-class luxury. He found solace on the upper deck, where he would lift his violin and play. A haunting, beautiful melody would drift across the cold ocean air, a sound that seemed to carry both sorrow and peace. One evening, a lady from first class, drawn by the music, approached him. "This music, it feels like a memory of something I've long forgotten," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Adrian offered a faint smile. "It's music for the souls searching for their way," he whispered. What no one knew was that Adrian himself was one of those lost souls. Days drifted by. Passengers would occasionally see him, a phantom figure quietly playing his violin, and then he would vanish for hours, sometimes days, at a time. Late one night, when the great ship was finally silent, Adrian slipped away from the starlit decks and descended into the ship's beneath a vast cargo hold. There, sitting on a wooden crate, he opened his violin case. But he didn't play. Instead, he carefully removed a sealed letter, which he had hidden inside the hollow body of the instrument. This letter was no ordinary correspondence. It contained explosive information documents exposing a massive political and financial scandal brewing in Europe. Information so powerful it could ignite a conflict that would shake nations to their core. You see, Adrian wasn't a spy. He was an ordinary man who had witnessed something he was never supposed to see. Now, powerful men were hunting him, and the Titanic was his desperate hope for escape, a way to disappear before they could silence him forever. On the night of April 14th, the sea was unnervingly calm, a sheet of black glass under a star-filled sky. As Adrian kept his lonely vigil, a faint sound from below caught his ear. A metallic thud, a suspicious noise that didn't belong. He followed the sound back down to the cargo hold. There, shrouded in shadow, he saw two men in dark coats, trying to force open a large metal chest belonging to a British lord. They were his hunters. They had found him. One of them turned, his face a mask of cold fury. "Give us the letter, Morgan," he hissed. "No one will know you disappeared tonight." But before they could make their move, the entire ship shuddered violently. A deep, gut-wrenching vibration, followed by a terrible, tearing sound as steel ripped apart. The Titanic had struck the iceberg. In the ensuing chaos, the two men fled. The chest remained sealed, and Adrian knew his time, and everyone's time, was running out. He scrambled back to the upper deck. Panic was a rising tide, washing over the ship in waves of terror. Women cried out, children clung to their parents, and officers shouted orders that were swallowed by the slicing Atlantic wind. It was a scene of pure chaos, but amidst it all, Adrian walked to the edge of the deck, sat down, pulled out his violin, closed his eyes, and began to play. He played a piece he had written just days before, a melody he called the Last Horizon. It was his final farewell, his final confession. A final breath of life poured into music. As the notes soared into the night, a strange thing happened. People stopped screaming. A few began to sob silently. Some just stared at him, their lips trembling. A man nearby whispered, "It feels like he's playing to comfort death itself." A woman cried softly, "Will he play until the very end?" Adrian didn't hear them. He was beyond fear, beyond the cold, beyond the pain. He poured every last piece of himself, his hopes, his sorrows, his entire life into that final melody. As the bow of the great ship began its slow, inexorable plunge into the abyss, and as the icy water crept ever closer, he continued to play. In the very last second before the waves claimed the ship, he pressed the violin to his chest, like a final embrace, and closed his eyes. 2 days after the sinking, as a rescue crew scanned the vast field of wreckage, they saw something floating gently on the surface. It was a violin, Adrian's. Violin, almost untouched by the brutal sea, and tucked safely inside it, they found the secret letter. Adrian Morgan's body was never recovered. His name was never recorded in the official lists of the living or the dead. But historians now believe the documents found in his violin may have prevented a political disaster, a conflict the world was not yet prepared to face. His body sank into the deep, but his melody, his sacrifice, and the truth he died to protect, liveth on. Thank you so much for joining me for this story. If you were moved by Adrian's tale, please give this video a like and consider subscribing for more stories that uncover the forgotten heroes of history. We'll see you next time.